Yes, two of them are soloists with the Symphony Orchestra of Sri Lanka.
Asham Pillai, viola player, who of course is of Sri Lankan origin, and also Robert Plain, clarinetist, who is principal of the BBC National Orchestra of Wales and a frequent clarinet soloist around the world and recorded artist as well. We also have in the party Sophia Rahman, the pianist, who did a Mozart concerto with our group at the Gaul Lighthouse Hotel last Saturday.
I see, so it's all been about the spillover that's happening here into Sri Lanka as well. And also I have to speak to you, James. Now you've mentioned in other articles as well about how the internet can play a role in the dissemination of information and knowledge when it comes to developing yourself. So let's speak about your opinion on that.
Well, there's two dimensions to that. The first is that when I first came to Sri Lanka in 2000, the amount of access to orchestral music here was tiny, that I would, and I still do, bring out music scores and recordings, and musicians would be passing them around and sharing them because their chance to even hear a lot of the great canon of orchestral music was very limited. The internet's completely changed that. Now they can go online, they can listen to YouTube, to Spotify and other such sites, and hear the full range of this wonderful orchestral music from around the world that we play. The second dimension is that the internet has enabled a degree of human contact between the Sri Lankan musicians and the British musicians and others, which is absolutely, again, unprecedented. So since the study tour last year, the amount of musician-to-musician contact has grown and blossomed. So many of the young musicians, when they arrived on Monday night at the Symphony Orchestra rehearsal, they weren't meeting strangers. They were meeting people they'd already been talking to.
Yeah, they were looking for their friends. They had the people they've been on Facebook with and that they've been exchanging emails with.
And none of this would have happened without this type of project.
And it will continue as well, right?
Yes.
Especially after the concert.
I think so, most definitely.
Absolutely. We try to leave something sustainable as part of what we do. It's a really important part that we can continue those links that we've forged in the places that we go to, and that
I feel very sure actually that the this trip of ours to Sri Lanka will leave by far the largest legacy and indeed things that we are going to continue with after this particular project and trip are over, because we are built. I know we're going to talk about schools and other aspects of this week later on, but we're forming very, very strong links with the Symphony Orchestra and with many other places, and I'm certain those links are going to maintain and grow.
And what's really important for us is that all of our musicians have come here to learn too. This is certainly not a trip about us just coming and playing.
Absolutely. Every new experience is just so valuable to the young musicians.
And speaking of new experiences, now the West definitely influences the Eastern style of music, but has the Eastern style of music influenced something that you might think about doing in the future?
I think a lot of the rhythmic patterns in Eastern music, and particularly your very significant drumming culture in Sri Lanka is really interesting to our musicians, and they're listening so carefully. We heard some Kandyan drummers the other day, and they were loving all the rhythmic patterns and the complexities, and really interesting to continue with that.
They're a very open-minded and receptive bunch of people, all of them here now, and they are mopping up the experiences of everything they see, hear and feel like sponges. And they'll continue to do so.
That's the great thing then, that they're doing that. But James, you want to add something to that?
I think it's just marvellous that they're here and absorbing new influences which are enriching them, and also we have brought some pieces inspired by Sri Lankan music that on Saturday night's concert, one of the young composers from Cheetham School, Toby Hessian, wrote an amazing work which used the Sri Lankan national anthem in a vibrant and beautiful way for that concert. And we also are going to play an orchestral version of a melody that everyone, I think, in the audience from Sri Lanka will recognise on Friday, which is Dano Budunge.
Which is?
Dano Budunge.
Dano Budunge.
Yes.
Okay, wow. So we have really adapted to the culture here as well, and we'll be hearing some great pieces, a reworking of classic Sri Lankan pieces.
Precisely, and this is all about us taking and listening to Sri Lankan music, being inspired by that, as well as bringing works from outside. Even some of our program, though, to show the internationalism of orchestral music, Holst's Planets is inspired as much by Indian and other South Asian mythology as it is by astronomy. It's Holst was a composer who actually learnt Sanskrit and wrote several operas on South Asian themes.
Okay.
So, and he was no amateur, precisely.
Yeah.
It's already moving that on.
The Commonwealth Festival Orchestra Concert. So thank you so much for speaking to us, and we'll be speaking to you in later segments as well. But right now we have to go for a very short break on Good Morning Sri Lanka. Do stay right here with us for more on the musical journey that these artists have taken. Back to the show. You're here with me, Amaya, on Good Morning Sri Lanka, and we are speaking to you today about the Commonwealth Festival Orchestra Concert, which is happening on the 15th of November at the Nelumpukuna Mahinda Rajapaksha Theatre. And you just heard a student from England who will be performing at that concert. Here's Adam Reynolds playing to you on tuba, and I have him as well as another student from Cheetham School here with me on the show. So I have to say good morning to you again, Nicholas,
morning
from
again.
the Cheetham's School of Music in Manchester. And we also have Adam, who just played for you on the screen, and he played for you on the tuba. So good morning, Adam. And we also have Oren Reynolds, Oren Ronald, I should say, who was also playing the cajon, and he'll be playing at the end of the show for us as well. And you're from the Purcell School of Music in London.
I am indeed.
All
yes,
right.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the show. So these are the two schools, Cheetham and Purcell's, are the schools who are mostly involved with Commonwealth Resounds.
That's correct.
And
yes.
Just to remind everyone shortly what Commonwealth Resounds is again.
Commonwealth Resounds is an organisation founded by one of the head of composition at the Purcell School, Alison Cox. The two schools work very closely together, and we form the core group, not the entirety of it, but the core group of musicians who make up the Commonwealth Resounds, and we run performance and outreach projects every 2 years in the venue of the Choggam.
I see, so that's why you're here in Sri Lanka.
Indeed
at
it
this
is.
moment and
Yes.
this week. So if I speak to you about the students who are selected to come down from England to participate in this concert, what kind of process do they have to go through?
Quite a rigorous one, in fact, yes. We, first of all, we obviously informed the body of students at both schools about the event. It's well known because it's happened several times already, but they're informed. People are invited to apply in writing, and certainly at Cheetham's, and I'm sure this is the case at Purcell as well, Oren, people were required to do some research on Sri Lanka. There's a little bit of its history, certainly something of its culture and its musical traditions, and they had to show us in writing, in answering to specific questions, what they'd found out.
I see.
Following that process, they then had to come to a verbal interview with the people involved in taking them on the trip, but also at Cheetham's we involved some other staff who were not connected with it at all, just to give it a little bit more sort of breadth. And they
scare the kids a bit more as well.
Exactly, to scare them a bit more, exactly. And basically they had to sell themselves and show us and convince us that they would be great participants in the programme, which they have magnificently proved to be to date, and I know they're going to continue to do so.
Yeah. And Adam, now if I could ask about the piece that you just played for us before we started the segment, tell us something about that.
Well, the tuba repertoire, solo tuba repertoire, has been around for less than 100 years, so there's a lot less than there is for other instruments. So the Norwegian tubist Øystein Bårdsvik was looking to breadthen the repertoire with something completely different. So decided to use a technique called multiphonics, which you just heard in that piece, which is when you sing over the top of your playing.
Oh, okay, wow. So there's so many different techniques that you have to master when it comes to doing that, right? It's not just plain old playing the tuba.
Yeah.
And so that's why you're here then. All right, so let's speak about what you, I've heard that you had to work all year round just to sponsor yourself to come for this trip. So tell us about what got you interested in coming to Sri Lanka.
Well, I think Quite selfishly, I have a big love of Eastern cuisine, and the opportunity to come and try the different
So it was the food.
was a real seller for me. But also the kind of musical outreach and kind of sharing Western music, which I feel so passionately about, to Sri Lankans was a big part.
And Oran, was it the same for you as well?
Yeah, I've always had an interest in the outreach work that we do, but also seeing as the drumming, and as I'm a drummer, as the drumming in Sri Lankan is such a big part of the culture and the music, I really wanted to come to not only try and share what I see percussion as, but also to learn what Sri Lankans see percussion as, because I have a very different view of what drumming is, as I've learned a very Western view of drumming to what you guys in Sri Lanka see of drumming as you,
Now I'll get back to what you've learned so far during the rehearsals and all of that, but I've heard that you had to do some crazy things to raise the funds to get here, so is it true? Am I hearing rumours, or is it true?
People have done all manner of yes, pretty crazy individual things. In Britain, in winter, it's cold, usually wet, very grey. The sea is freezing and utterly uninviting. But we had two of our students who took advantage of local customs, shall we say, in their villages and hometowns, both of which involved immersing themselves for insanely long amount of time in the freezing sea and getting sponsorship, raising money for the costs of them being here for that.
Wow.
And we've had people baking cakes,
jumping
off bridges, running races, learning to master an instrument that they'd never played before in some cases, and all manner of very inventive and varied ways to raise the necessary funds.
Wow, so that is really commitment to the cause, isn't it? Yeah. But Adam, so what have you learned so far during the rehearsals, and has it been everything you hoped for?
The amount of professionalism in the rehearsal from the musicians is really admirable. From talking to some of the musicians, they all have quite full-time day jobs, but they all have practiced their parts and turn up to the rehearsals and are just so dedicated, and it's really inspiring, and it's an honour to play with them.
Wow. And Oran, I'm sure that you said you came here to learn from them as well, while giving back to the Sri Lankan students. So have you? And what have you sort of picked up about the Sri Lankan culture and music here?
Well, it's very rhythmic. The rhythms are in percussion. You get quite sort of stereotypical rhythms that people use a lot, and in Sri Lanka, the stereotypical rhythms that are used are very, very different to the Western rhythms. Western rhythms are quite sort of straight and, to be honest, a bit boring. But Sri Lankan rhythms are a bit more sort of groovy and exciting.
All right, so I like you. You like Sri Lankan rhythms.
Oh yes.
And you've been down in Galle, and you've played with some youth there as well. Let's talk about that experience.
Yes, we did a workshop and a sort of joint musical session with the Southern Youth Orchestra, and there who are directed by a member of the Symphony Orchestra of Sri Lanka. It's a woodwind and brass orchestra, and we all got together in a very large hall in somewhere in Galle, and we played a little to them, didn't we?
Yeah.
And they were very, very appreciative of that. And then we joined them on stage, and we rehearsed a little bit one of the pieces that they are studying as a group.